Welcome back to the channel. I really wanted to see some spots that I don't normally get to see, so after doing some research, I made my way up towards the Lake City area, which is north central Florida, about an hour north of me, and I was able to visit some cool small towns and state parks. That morning, after my cat Kevin woke me up with his obnoxious screaming that I have trained him to do, I said bye to my wife, loaded up my trusty Canon Rebel 2000 that was already preloaded with some Kodak Portra 400 from a previous shoot, and hit the road. Since it was the weekend, my first stop was, of course, a flea market. I had never been to the one in Lake City, so I figured that'd be a really great spot to start this whole day off. Maybe find some cool nunchucks or something. I have an absolute fascination with roadside signs, especially ones that are beat up and old. This one was especially worn, but still legible. I did take this portrait in the bathroom of the flea market. I actually really liked the shadows on the back walls a lot, and I'm not normally a person who takes a lot of portraits, so I wanted to show this one. Well, the flea market was a bust. Not a lot there. I looked at some knives, because why not? You're at a flea market, but nothing really there, so I am now gonna head to the abandoned ghost town that I found through Atlas Obscura. I'm hoping that it turns out pretty cool. It's about, I don't know, 15-20 minutes from here, so not too far, and hopefully I can get some cool photos. About 30 minutes away from Lake City, I took a turn off the main road and made it to Ellaville, or what was left of it, really. Ellaville was a sawmill city founded in the 1860s on the banks of the Suwannee River. At its peak, there were probably a couple hundred people living there, all of which mostly worked for the sawmill or in businesses surrounding that trade. The town really flourished for a while until the yellow pine kind of disappeared that they were milling. And it declined after about 1900 and officially ceased to exist when the post office closed in 1942. What's left is mostly just a few fireplaces and piles of bricks, along with the bridge that was actually the point of entry into the city, which is now part of a walking trail that's connected to a state park that's basically next door, which I visited after this site. The bridge is absolutely covered in graffiti, including a few of my favorite pieces here. The bridge itself is stunning. It's that classic truss design and just covered in rust. It was such a beautiful day out. I just hung out here for a little while and just looked out over the water. Well, that was until this family showed up and tried to force me to join their collective. Sort of like the Borg in that way. They had some compelling points, and I'm actually going to share a few. I like this photo a lot with the beams of the bridge I'm on. Framing the train bridge off in the background really gives a sense of layering. Layers really help make a photo work well. It's not all you need composition as well, but layers definitely add to that. The shadows from the beams above also add a really nice touch. I ended up walking down to the river to get a side view of the bridge and see if I could find any more of the ghost town that was supposedly here. But all I found was some more fireplaces and a few snakes that really didn't want to be my friend. After this, I think I'm going to head, there's a state park near here, so I'm going to head over there and see what I can get into. Right next door to Ellaville is the Suwannee River State Park. So I drove on over. I'd never been there before. Actually, I'd never even heard of it until I was already here in Ellaville looking at this town, and I just noticed there was a state park next to it. And I love exploring new state parks. It's one of the reasons I have a yearly state park pass. So I decided to go check it out. And I just had no idea what to expect, except, of course, the Suwannee River aspect of it. It is actually one of Florida's first state parks, and it's something like 1,800 acres spanning across 3 different counties. It's fucking huge. I didn't really spend a ton of time here as there were a few more places I had already picked out that I wanted to go check out. But I ended up walking on kind of 2 of the shorter trails. The first trail I went on was the Earthworks Trail, which actually takes you by some Civil War era earthworks that were built up to defend that railroad bridge we saw earlier. The battle ended up actually never even happening, but these earthworks were still built for that, which is pretty cool. There's also some remains of some steamboats from when they used to take people up and down the river from this point. After walking through these people's campsites like the asshole that I am, I made it to another trail that is actually going close to the river. I thought this person was some type of weird scarecrow or something. They were honestly just like not moving for a full 5 minutes. The trail ended pretty suddenly on this flooded section, so I ended up just turning around. I was talking to a ranger, and apparently that happens quite a lot. The Suwannee River floods the area pretty often. So I turned around and I got this picture.
Well, I used my last photo of that, what I think is Kodak Portrait 400. So I'm going to switch to, I have a roll of Cinestill 400D in my bag. So we're going to go switch to that and then move on to the next location.
So I headed out from the park, and I realized that my next scheduled stop would have me passing through the town of Live Oak. So I made sure to drive through the downtown area a bit and check out what was there. I absolutely love small town motels, even if they are chains. There's just something about them. It's a little bit of a liminal nature. And when you know it, another sign. Like I said, I have a fascination with them. This one was a little bit more of a unique one and pretty worn, but the restaurant was still open, surprisingly. The downtown was pretty small as suspected, but the city hall and post office were very easy on the eyes. There is something about downtown government buildings in a small town that is fascinating. Or I should say the old post office, as this building was for sale, so let me know if you guys want to go in on it. Or maybe I should just invite my new family here. I then explored this gas station, this abandoned gas station, for a little bit. It was right across the street from the abandoned post office, which seems apt. I'm not sure why I like this photo, but the light pouring in from the outside into the empty room is a very cool vibe. And there goes another ambulance. On the way out of town, I noticed the wildflowers were in bloom, so I pulled over to live my 2000s indie rom-com dreams. My next stop was the small town of White Springs, Florida. Here was the busiest section of a town of 746 people, according to Wikipedia. And not that this section wasn't cool, but the real reason I was here is I heard about an abandoned building that used to be a part of a sort of tourist attraction, Florida's first tourist attraction. This building was built up around a naturally occurring spring here, White Springs, in the early 1900s, and people would come to bathe in the springs for its supposed healing factors because it was a mineral spring. This mindset did eventually die down in the US, and so eventually the spring and surrounding buildings were abandoned. Being as I was shooting Cinestill during the day, I didn't expect to see our friend halation. Around the edges of these holes, you can see the unmistakable orange glow. Once again, another state park I hadn't heard of till today. But it was also in White Springs, so I figured it'd be a nice end to the day before I drove on home. Named after the composer Stephen Foster, who wrote the song Old Folks at Home, also known as Way Down Upon the Suwannee River. This park was actually built to honor his legacy, even though, according to the information I read, he had never even been to Florida before. Seems like an odd choice, but it was pretty late in the day at this point, so the museum was closed, but it is a state park, so I just drove around, looked at a bunch of stuff until I saw this giant tower out of nowhere. I had no idea what it was or why it was there, but I had to take some photos of it. After I got home, I did some research on it, and it turns out it's a bell tower that houses one of the largest carillons in the entire world, just in this random state park. You ever think to yourself, this photo is going to be so good? Well, I did, and it wasn't. All in all, this was a long-ass day, a lot of driving, but I had an absolutely great time. Seeing a ghost town and an abandoned tourist attraction was really cool, and something that this area of Florida can offer. And I really do love visiting the state parks here, so that's always a bonus. I didn't even plan on visiting those two parks, and I'm absolutely glad I did. I think being able to shoot on a mix of Portra 400 and Cinestill 400D helped keep these photos different enough and not looking too samey. I always like to bring two to three different types of film with me on a day like this so that the whole day is a little bit different throughout it. Thank you again for watching this video and supporting my photography. And if you have any suggestions of places I should check out, let me know. I gotta go make sure to tell Kevin to wake me up in the morning.